This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and we are going to, basically I shared a quote on Instagram on, what day was it, Sunday, and I wanted to expand on that. I think it was probably one of the better quotes I've shared, for the reason being is that it's a really good example of we are not our emotions. It's the same thing as that people often get confused with being their body. They think that they are their body. People think they're their job. People think that they're these labels. And what ends up happening is that they end up catching a lot of their self-worth and self-confidence up in these labels, which means it becomes conditional. So if my position, my work, my job, the hierarchy that I work in, or holarchy, or however it is, defines my self-worth, is that I feel really good when I achieve something, when I get to a particular level. The problem is that as soon as I lose that level, if I do, which may happen for many reasons, then I lose all the self-worth that goes with that, right? And now there's a greater external authority that has decisive, capabilities over my self-worth. And so the same thing comes with our emotions. And the quote was written, it was, I think, out of a book called The Invisibles, by Grant Morrison. That's my guess. I don't know. I just saw it and I liked it and I shared it. It's pretty simple. And it goes on and says, I feel a sadness on me, Dane. And that's how the Irish people say it. In their language, you can't say, I am sad or I am happy. They understood what we English folk have long forgot. We're not our sadness. We're not our happiness or our pain, but our language hypnotizes us and traps us in little labeled boxes. Some of the most powerful things that we can say are like framed. They're introduced to our worldwide language with the words "I am." Whatever follows those two words can heavily dictate how we perceive ourselves, in the world, and that can tell us so much about ourselves, right? That it can often be taken for granted, and people overlook and they go, that's not really true. But time and time again, it does show to be true. When we say I am sad, we're actually defining that I am sadness, not I'm experiencing sadness, right? Such as, I feel a sadness on me. It's not me. I am not sad. I feel sadness on me. I'm experiencing sadness. It's coming through me. Which also takes away this idea that it's bad. Sadness isn't bad. It's like saying sadness is bad is the same as saying happiness is bad. It's an emotion with utility. Every emotion has utility, right through to anger and empathy and anything else. They all have utility, otherwise we wouldn't have access to them, right? Anxiousness has utility, right? It's so fascinating that when we can remove this idea of positive and negative, good and bad, and especially from society's standards of emotions, and be able to just understand ourselves and understand that we are not our emotions, that we are bigger than our emotions, we are more than our emotions. We are part of the universe, and the universe is a part of us. And then we get caught up in thinking that I am sad, I am sadness, right? It's almost like we're trancing ourselves into particular states. We're embedding commands into it, like literally our conscious mind, and basically telling ourselves how to behave, right? It's interesting getting this sort of stuff, because I remember speaking to clients in the past around and seeing their beliefs, whether they be limiting. Limiting beliefs are only limiting if we want to achieve something different, hey? Because people go, oh, these are a limiting belief. It's like, well, it's not limiting if you don't want to achieve much, right? It's very liberating if you don't want to achieve much. People are very happy being in misery, so those beliefs aren't limiting because it's giving them exactly what they want unconsciously, or what they think they deserve at least. But I remember seeing this person's belief, and we were using a whiteboard and outlined in front of them, and they're like, well, I don't know what to do with that. And it's like, well, you simply can work on saying the opposite is an easy way. And they're like, positive affirmations don't work for me. And I was like, well, it's not really what I'm saying, but I'm like, how do you know? They're like, well, they just don't work. Affirmations don't work. I'm like, well, your fucking negative ones do. Because you're sitting here repeating the negative bullshit to yourself, and you're sitting there going, well, positive affirmations don't work. Well, what the fuck is the difference? You just don't want to see the world differently because you don't want to be wrong. See, it's really easy to be sad in your righteousness rather than be happy in your wrongness. Hey, and so the beautiful thing about this is being able to step back and see how we like literally trance ourselves into a state by using what's technically called global language, such as I am sad, when clearly we are so much more than a emotion, like an emotion. Like just when I say a, I mean one emotion. We're so much more than that. We're a dynamic process unfolding continually as the earth spins within this universe, and here we are sitting and going, I am this. And so one of the best things that we can do when we start to first become aware of this, even saying I am happy, is still entrancing a state. Maybe it's a more resourceful state, but it depends. If you're at awake, maybe not so much. But either way, like it's seeing the utility of all of this. But the first thing to do is just become aware of the language. It can be self-talk, or it could be actual verbal language, right? And when we catch ourselves, it's simply just changing it. And moving from this idea of I am sad to this idea of I'm currently experiencing sadness. And some people might look at you weird. And so what? Like, if that's the worst thing that happens, it doesn't matter. Like, it just, the people that get it won't. They'll understand. They're like, no, it's like I'm not sad, but I can feel it. I'm experiencing it. But I myself am not. I'm more than sadness. That's fucking taking your power back. Otherwise, what people do is they just hand their power over. They hand their power over to often a reactive emotion based on an external situation, and then they let that dictate their self-worth. The first thing we can do to take control of that is simply recognize it, see and be aware, to witness this arising within us, wanting to say that we are sad, we are angry, that even I am excited is often an emotion that's it literally is like monopoly money, because it's not real. Excitement's about the future. I'm not saying we shouldn't be excited, in the same way I'm not saying we shouldn't be sad, but excitement's about the future. It's not about here now. It's not presencing. It's not peacefulness. It's anticipation about a positive outcome in the future, right? About possibilities maybe. And it's just recognizing this and understanding that in order to be grounded, you can simply experience excitement, and let that be playful, because then you can see it. Then you can really let it come through you, as opposed to identifying it. And so when that happens, when we can sit there and start to become really aware of these emotions that come through us, and recognize that they're not us, we are not an emotion, what we can start to do is just change the language. That's the first step. Changing the language to be able to sit there and go, I'm feeling happy, and I'm feeling sad. I can feel that. I am not sadness. It's just a sadness on me, right? And this is why you'll often hear me talk about a lot of people's depression is simply just a heavy sadness, right? And people was like, you don't understand depression. It's just like, well, maybe you don't understand sadness. It doesn't mean that I'm wiping out all depression. I'm not at all. It's ridiculous to do that, right? It's just simply looking at it and go, most people are sad about being sad. It's like, if you do that enough, you'll get fucking depressed. And so when we can remove this identity attached to sadness, this identity attached to labels and positions and jobs and external things that ebb and flow, we start to recognize that we ourselves are our own identity, and that we simply experience these things for a moment in time. And they come and they go like everything else. And when we can do that, we start to control our reality just that little bit more. And with that, it's a fucking shit ton of power, hey. On that note, team, I'm done. If you haven't already, then please jump on Facebook, search Mood Prep Community, jump into the Mood Prep Community. I got a Q&A coming in there in the next couple of weeks as well as there's details in there for the Mood Prep Intensive, which is a 2-day seminar up in Sydney on September 21st and 22nd. I'd love to see you there. At the moment, it's 2-for-1 tickets, and I think there's only 5 of those going for 10 people, obviously. And They end, I think, within the next week. So you got to make sure you jump on those if you're interested in coming along. September 21st, 22nd. Otherwise, Tim, if you found this podcast beneficial, it would mean the world to me if you'd pass on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza, kick today in the dick, and slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
Happiness to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.